Okay, hey guys, my name's Sho, and I will be refuting a speech that was given a couple weeks ago. So the claim I'm responding to is that television has a significant negative effect on young audiences, and my opponent's secondary claims were: 1, children are being exposed to much more television and media nowadays; 2, cultivation theory and mean world syndrome; and 3, children are very impressionable at young ages. So my response to the speaker's speech is that the secondary claims fail to prove the main claim. So our first claim, children are being exposed to much more television media nowadays. My response to this is that the evidence used in her claim is wrong. The speaker starts her claim with a study done by Common Sense Media in 2017 that says, children up to 8 years old spend an average of 2 hours and 19 minutes every day on screen media. And in 2011, the average screen media time for the same age group was 1 hour and 55 minutes. So I actually looked into the source of what she used, and it was a CNN article that basically summarized the study. And I went to the actual study from the organization's website, and I found that in 2011, the average screen media time for the same age group was actually 2 hours and 16 minutes, and not the speaker's claimed 1 hour and 55 minutes. So that means that there was only an increase in screen media for 3 minutes from 2011 to 2017. And as I was going through the study, I actually found that children in 2017 are watching less TV than they were in 2011. On the study, it shows a graph of screen media, and it splits the time watching. So there's like different categories, and there's TV, DVD, computer, video games, and mobile devices. So in 2011, kids were watching 51% of TV out of these devices, and in 2017, they were watching about 42% of TV. So even though it was a 3-minute increase, the percentages are big enough to show that children are watching less TV. Her secondary claim was the cultivation theory and mean world syndrome, which, to remind you guys, the cultivation theory is basically if you watch enough TV, you'll start to think that TV is like reality. And from that comes the mean world syndrome, which basically says that people think the world is more violent because there's more violence in TV. And my response to this claim is that the speaker does not provide examples of these theories being applied and that they are outdated. The cultivation theory and the mean world syndrome was developed in 1976, and it is too old of a theory to apply to the media today. And there are no cases to support the conclusion of these studies. Finally, her third secondary claim, children are very impressionable at young ages. I'm not going to deny that this is true. However, the way she got to this conclusion was a little faulty. So she talks about the American Academy of Pediatrics, and she has a quote from the study that says, violence seen by children on television can contribute to aggressive behavior, desensitization to violence, nightmares, and fear of being harmed. The speaker does not provide any background of the study, so it is out of context. From this study, the speaker claims that children like to imitate, and television often reflects mainstream reality. And I actually looked at the study, and these conclusions weren't drawn from it. So that means that they were self-proclaimed. These conclusions are hastily generalized that were made from the study, or the claims she makes are hastily generalized from the study of the pediatrics, and is self-proclaimed, so she would need more evidence to prove that it is true. Overall, my opponent's speech fails to show that television has a significant negative effect on the young audiences, and this is because of her secondary claims had evidence and reasoning issues. Thank you.
Okay, the structural preview is fine. The first supporting point you go after almost immediately, talking about problems with the statistics that were being presented there. When you said media time or screen time, I immediately thought, well, how is that divided up? And then I appreciated the fact that you went back to the original source and broke it down and discovered that television is actually decreased in the amount of screen time that it takes up, and that there are other things that the kids are paying attention to. I also think it should be said that the advocate didn't necessarily provide any examples of what kind of programming on the screen time is producing these, whether it is video games or drama programming or just access to the news in general or cartoons, any of those sorts of things. And since we don't know what the kind of programming is, it's hard to say that it's going to have the same effect on these other media as it would on television. And obviously some of those things, they probably don't cover that as much. So I think that's a good press on this argument, and it undermines the credibility of the general argument that these things are getting worse. Is there any way that we can measure that this has a significant effect? That's one of the things that I thought was kind of missing from the original argument. Well, so how do we measure this significant effect? How could you measure, this negative effect? Are there children that are their grades worse? Are they sleeping less? Do they not play? Do they not have as many friends? Is there more crime? What is it? And we don't have any metric by which we can look at that and evaluate it. And I think you could probably make an argument about the absence of that and then say, look, we have other metrics that tell us, look, crime has gone down, media use may have gone up, but there's no correlation between these two things, so I'm not sure why we're worried about anything. And that would give you a little bit stronger point on that issue. The second point about the mean world syndrome and the cultivation, you basically call this out as being kind of an old school theory, which it is, but that doesn't necessarily make it an invalid theory, except that as you pointed out, there's no examples that are provided. There's no experts that suggest that that's what's happening right now. There's no information that suggests that children are more terrified of the world today than they were in 1976 or 2011 or whenever it is that we're doing these comparisons. And so I think that you've got good presses on that. There's not any evidence on the point, but I thought that you made pretty effective presses. Same sort of thing, though, if you went out and dug up a little bit of information about, kids play more or they have more friends or, bullying has gone down or something like that, then you would have an easy answer to that. And you could say, and I presented some evidence and the advocate didn't provide any. So when you're looking at the two, remember who's given you some grounds to believe as opposed to the other side of the position. And then, you kind of generally challenged the study on the last point, suggesting that it's very conclusionary, that the advocate has made this inference. It's not a quote from the study, and since we don't know what the study was based on, and since it's not a direct quote, that there's just a lack of proof on this, and they failed to meet sufficiency on that point. That's fine. All right, thank you.